Hello students. Today we will talk about principles of immunochemical methods for organism identification part 1. Myself Dr. Taruna and I am associate professor in microbiology department of SP Medical College, Bikaner. So what are these immunochemical methods? Immunochemical methods, they use antigens or antibodies as tools to detect the microorganism. What we detect in these methods? Antigens or antibodies. What are antigens? Antigens are substances which are usually high molecular weight proteins or carbohydrates which elicit the production of other proteins. What are these? Antibodies in human or animal host. Antibody, this is also known as immunoglobulin. These are specific proteins which are produced by certain cells in our body in response to presence of antigen. So whenever any microorganism enters in our body, microorganism is supposed to bear the antigens over their surface. So our body will form antibodies against that microorganism or towards the antigens of that particular microorganism. These antibodies, they may be of two types, polyclonal antibody and monoclonal antibodies. Various immunochemical methods are precipitation test, particle agglutination test, immunofluorescence assay, enzyme immunoassay, radioimmunoassay, and complement fixation test. Precipitation test. This is basic antigen antibody reaction and there is free diffusion of antigen and antibody towards one another if we perform it in agarose 1% agarose gel. Double immunodiffusion is what? Antigen containing patient specimen is placed in one well and antibody against the antigen in adjacent well. Over 18 to 24 hour, zone of equivalence is seen. Wherever antigen antibody meets each other, zone of equivalence is there, and this is used to detect exoantigens produced by systemic fungi, and this technique is too slow. This double immunodiffusion technique is too slow. Then one more example of precipitation test is counter-immunoelectrophoresis. Counter-immunoelectrophoresis speeds up migration of antigen and antibody towards each other by applying electrical current. Bacterial antigen, they are negatively charged, whereas antibodies, they are neutral. Negatively charged antigen migrates towards the positive electrode, whereas neutral antibodies, they migrate nearby to well. Over 1 hour, zone of equivalence occurs and this test has low sensitivity and bands are often difficult to see and this is more expensive. This is the double immunodiffusion test. This is the center well in which we can take antigen if we want to detect the antibody. These are the wells in which we take patient serum. So wherever we get this type of bands, this one and this one, then this well as well as this well, they are positive samples, means they have corresponding antibodies towards this specific antigen, whereas all other wells which are not showing any line of precipitation, they are negative one. This is counter immunoelectrophoresis. This is 1% agarose gel, and here in this well antigen is there, and in this particular well we take antibody. So then electric current is passed wherever antigen and antibody meet each other with zone of equivalence, their precipitation line or a band formation will be there. This is the principle of counter immunoelectrophoresis. Next is flocculation test. This is nothing but a variation of precipitation test, and here end products, they form macroscopically or microscopically visible clumps. The example of flocculation test, slide flocculation test is VDRL test. Antibody-like protein, resin, they bind to test antigen, cardiolipin, lecithin, coated cholesterol particles. So if we want to perform the VDRL test, What antigen we will take? Cardiolipin, lecithin coated cholesterol particle we take as antigen. Whereas where are the antibodies? Antibodies are there in the patient serum. If patient is infected with syphilis or patient is having the disease syphilis. This is a good screening test. A modification of this VDRL test is RPR test, rapid plasma reagin test. And in this, antigen is cardiolipin, lecithin coated cholesterol with choline chloride and charcoal particles has been taken up along with that. This VDRL test detect antibody in the CSF, whereas RPR is not used for CSF sample because VDRL is more specific and sensitive for neurosyphilis detection in CSF sample. This is how RPR test is performed for diagnosis of syphilis. We can see we take a white plate, antigen and antibody are mixed in these circles. One circle represent for one patient specimen. And if result is like this, means no clumping or no floccules are formed, the test is non-reactive. If weak floccules are formed, then the reaction is weakly reactive and we report the result as weakly reactive. And if strong clumps are formed, then strong reactive result we give. So this is how we perform RPR test for diagnosis of syphilis. And this is a card test and this is a slide example of slide flocculation test. Next is heme agglutination inhibition test. There are certain viruses which bear heme agglutinin spike over their surface. So when we mix these virus particle with RBC, then they causes clumping of RBC. This is known as heme agglutination. They have heme agglutinin spike over their surface. They can cause agglutination of RBC. So when we observe this reaction in a microtiter well, reaction is like this, agglutination of RBC or heme agglutination. So when we take patient serum, which is supposed to have antibody to these heme agglutinin spike, the viruses which have heme agglutinin spike, if they enter in our body will form antibody against these heme agglutinin spike. So obviously these antibodies, where are they? They are there in the serum. So when we take this specimen, serum sample of patient which is having antibody against heme agglutinating viruses, then antigen antibody complexes they are formed. So subsequently when we add RBC in this, then there will be no clumping of RBC as all these heme agglutinin spike, they have already been occupied by the antibody against them. So this is known as heme agglutination inhibition. So there will be no agglutination of RBC, and this is showing that patient specimen is having antibody against the virus, so the test is positive. This heme agglutination inhibition test is done to diagnose disease by rubella, influenza, parainfluenza, adenovirus and mumps virus, because all these viruses, they have heme agglutinin spike over their surface. So whenever they enter in our body or whenever they causes infection in our body, antibody against their heme agglutinin spikes are produced. So we have to perform heme agglutination inhibition test in order to diagnose infection by these viruses. Next is particle agglutination test. Detection of antigen via agglutination of an artificial carrier particle with antibody bound to its surface. So what is the principle of particle agglutination test? In this we detect the antigen. How? Via agglutination of an artificial carrier particle over its surface. Antibodies, they are there. For example, latex agglutination. So antibody, they are bound to the surface of latex beads, and when we mix these latex bead with the antigen, then antigen antibody reaction will be there, and cross-linked aggregate of latex beads as well as antigen will be there. Results are graded from 1+ to 4+, whereas 2+ is the minimum agglutination which is seen in reactive sample or positive sample. Via this method, we detect antigens of Cryptococcus neoformans, beta hemolytic streptococci, Streptococcus agalacti, and Clostridium difficile, etc. So these, in the diagnosis of these diseases, this latex agglutination test is performed. Next is co-agglutination test. What is co-agglutination? Particle which are used to enhance the visibility of agglutination is killed and treated Staphylococcus aureus. So in latex agglutination test, we are using latex particles. Here we are using killed and treated Staphylococcus aureus CoV1 strain. And we can identify streptococci, various groups, lens-filled groups of streptococci like group A, B, C, D, etc. Then Streptococcus pneumoniae, Neisseria meningitidis, Neisseria gonorrhoeae, and H. influenzae. So in these diseases, in order to identify lens-filled groups, then in order to diagnose pneumococcal disease, meningococcal, gonococcal, and H. influenza disease, we perform co-agglutination test. This is highly specific test and this is not sensitive like latex agglutination test. The modification of this co-agglutination is liposome enhanced latex agglutination, in which molecule they bound to the surface of liposome and which act as agglutination particle. So in this liposome enhanced latex agglutination test, liposome are combined with the latex particles, and weak agglutination to strong reaction which is visible to the eye. So we can convert weak agglutination to a strong reaction. This is yet to reach full potential as a diagnostic reagent. So these are examples of agglutination test. These are latex particles or polystyrene particles which are coated with antibodies which are specific to CRP. And where is CRP? In the patient's serum. So a beautiful zone of equivalence is there, lattice formation is there, and hence agglutination is there. A patient specimen is positive for CRP, C-reactive protein. So this is the principle of CRP test which is performed by latex agglutination test in our laboratory. This is the principle of co-agglutination test. These are killed and treated Staphylococcus aureus CoV1 strain. They have protein A over their surface. And when we combine these with the specific antibody, then antibody will bind to these Staphylococcus aureus cells. And subsequently, the antigen which we want to detect, if that serum is added, then again a lattice formation will be there because of this antigen antibody reaction, and clumping or agglutination will be there. This is the principle of co-agglutination test. Here instead of latex particle, we have used Staphylococcus aureus CoV1 strain. Thank you very much for your patience listening.